We all have patterns that give us away. A lot of high functioning autistic people tend to notice patterns. Um, I'm going to tell you about a situation. But first, I'm going to try to give somebody the benefit of the doubt, even though I don't want to. There's things that people know that they can use to manipulate me. And some of those are when they say they're going to help me, these excuses come in handy. Now, we've gotten to hear them all. When these things only happen when it's time to turn in a crime, when these things only happen when it's time to keep your word to help somebody, especially when that person's helping you and it turns into a situation where it's not reciprocated, it is real hard to believe. So, giving a person the benefit of the doubt. Um, I'm going to have to dub Estes Park, Colorado, the rapiest town in Colorado, maybe even in America. I think ICE should get out of Minneapolis and go to Estes Park, Colorado. And I'll explain why. Just one moment, I gotta blow my nose. So, Claire, there's a lot of conversations with her. Not all of them are online. Matter of fact, most of them are not. Um, that's not due to lack of trying. I'd like to post everything up. It just takes for friggin' ever. But when it comes to what she's had to say on 7 separate occasions when she had said that she was going to help me to turn something in, somebody got raped. And several times on the phone when she's been talking to me, she's gotten a hold of me to let me know that there's underage girls letting her know that they were raped. And then she also talks to me about some of these situations, doesn't go too much into detail. And the ones that she does, there's probably about 5 or 6 conversations that aren't recorded even. And then there's the ones where she asks me to keep it private because of an ongoing investigation or because of, various shit like that. But then the reality of the situation. So, uh, we've got a lot of situations where we've had women who manipulate people, and a lot of the situations that I was in, women wanted to manipulate me by saying this stuff. And when a woman says this stuff, especially about sexual assault, we are supposed to take it seriously, right? Not the way you take it seriously when it's a homeless person getting the shit beat out of them for crimes they didn't commit. No, we're talking about the important stuff. People only care about sexual assault and pretend sexual assault can only happen to women, and that's not the truth. So, the main things that people use as their excuses are their families, of course, after they've made all these promises and said, oh no, there's no problem. Yeah, my family's safe. There won't be an issue. And then when they don't keep their word, oh, I'm afraid for my family. You're also drunk. So, I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about very specifically a woman named Sarah Bacon. And some of them tell pretty outlandish stories, and, it's difficult not to believe some of them. And there's stuff that I've seen, like, for example, with Claire's situation here in Tillamook. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that she says that sounds crazy. Like, yeah, sure, it sounds crazy until you come here. I've never seen this kind of. I don't want to call it a cult because then that makes me sound crazy, but it's definitely a wrong-headedness around here. But I'm in Tillamook, Oregon. This is where I met Claire Jordan. I don't know how many times when she was going to help me, it ends up being a conversation about rapiness. People getting raped. A bunch of people getting raped in Estes Park. So she's got to constantly cancel meetings and not keep in touch. There's the safety issues that are obvious. She knows that with safety issues like that, if you disappear, I'm going to freak out. It's going to happen. And if you're going to, message me, message me. You could at least message once a day in a situation like that to let me know you're okay, especially if we planned on working on something. So the next thing is that, and she admits this is the thing, is that with Claire, it's not a situation where I have a lack of conversation time or a lack of things that she's saying to back it up or to prove it. What I can't prove, because I haven't actually heard any of these people who she claims this happened to say it themselves. So I'm literally taking just Claire's word for it. No evidence whatsoever. I haven't seen any evidence that she's telling the truth. I don't expect to see any evidence that she's telling the truth. And that's one of the great outs that women have. Oh, well, somebody was sexually assaulted and I can't give out any information. And it's kind of strange when it turned into a situation where it's nearly always that. Or the situation where you want to complain about how nobody would help you turn it in. You admit that I tried to help you turn it in, that I offered to help you turn it in. But repeatedly, when she claimed that she was going to turn it in, the reason that she doesn't have a witness to verify that she turned it in, I can't verify that she turned it in. I didn't go with her. I offered. She went in by herself and then wanted to complain for literally years that Casey wouldn't go in with her. Well, yeah, I know. And no, she didn't date him for years. But also, given the situation, she had somebody who knows how screwed up it is and how important it is to have somebody there with you in person. And of course, something like that, that's something that every woman can always pull if she just doesn't feel like it. I know because a lot of women have admitted to pulling that because they just didn't feel like it. Sorry, something really, really bad happened to a good close friend of mine. Oh, something bad happened to the neighbor's kid. But I'm trying to believe her because a lot of the stuff that I saw here with my own two eyes was absolutely true. Now, that's secondary evidence if she ever gets a case, but the problem is she never wanted to turn it in. She claimed that she did, and I'd offered to, and then she didn't want to, and then she claimed she did it by herself and nobody's working on it, or they got a hold of the dude who did something, and now he's running around so they can't get him the warrant. And then like 3 or 4 times she's told me that she's super excited they're drawing up the warrant. So, I'm basically at that point, this is the one thing that I ask everybody not to make me. I don't want to be your therapist. If you're going to tell me about horrible things happening to you, do it under one condition. Don't do it as an excuse not to keep your word. Okay? Certainly don't do it for that. Don't do it just because you want to interject or because you want to have a urinating contest about whose life is worse. The difference between Claire's situation and my situation is that I've sent her a lot of evidence of my situation. I've also told her a lot about my situation when I'm able to, but she does not treat it the way that she would if it was a female victim. She does not treat it in a way where she does kind of. She knows how to do the coddling thing. That's down pat. A lot of y'all know how to do that. But for first of all, for men, and second of all, even doubly so for autistic folks, we all know that chit chat, small talk, bullshit, stuff like that, just it goes over our heads because we don't fucking care. All right. When it comes down to business, that's what we need to focus on. But much of the time, when women want to help, especially women, and men do this too, but they want to act the hostess. I don't need a hostess. I don't need somebody bugging me every 5 minutes. I don't need somebody bugging me every 3 minutes. I don't need 10 people texting me at the same time, all needing my attention when what I need to be doing is getting myself to a safe environment. Given unsolicited advice, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And their advice, I mean, just like the situation with the investigator from TFCC. A lot of that stuff I told her in there, I had to tell her multiple times, and she still didn't get it. She also kept on trying to make excuses for her coworkers or trying to reword it, and Claire wasn't there for that call. Now, one of the other things that a lot of people like to do when they don't want to actually keep their word is there's police, 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 police. So all of a sudden, these people who say they've never had a problem with the police, never had a criminal record, never even had a reason to interact with the police, all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of stuff with the police nearly every time that you call them. Well, I had to talk to a bunch of investigators. I had to talk to a bunch of therapists. I've talked to a bunch of these people, and I'm not sure if you noticed, but one of the things that you might notice as a mirror in my situation is that I'm actually recording that I'm going to these places. These investigators are claiming all sorts of stuff, but they're not getting anything done. They're going to pass it on to somebody else who's going to pass it on to somebody else. But that somebody else isn't going to pass it on until I get a hold of them and harass them. That's how they're going to treat me. Because nobody prior to them wanted to find out whether the Natalie Bollinger thing was a delusion or not. Meanwhile, in Colorado, yeah, everybody involved in all of my court dates knew that the Natalie Bollinger thing was not a delusion. But they still proceeded to try to pretend it's a delusion, and that's followed me to this day. Now, how many women have done predatory stuff towards me, pretended that they were going to help, wasted my time, wasted my money, wasted my emotional confidence. Let's call it that, because when it comes to money, I don't really have any. For me, $20 is a lot of fucking money. For you, $20 is nothing. For Donald Trump, $20? I don't even understand why we have bills that small. But the situation with Estes Park, Colorado being that extremely rapey, and some people being extremely prone to being raped, that's another thing. A lot of these people, when it comes the day to keep their word, they don't call, they don't message, they don't nothing. And then, of course, I get told about how they got into a fight with their boyfriend, got into a fight with their husband, things of that nature. They had to talk to law enforcement or they ended up in the hospital. Of course, there's the one that's super famous. I had like, I don't know, I want to say close to 30 people that were going to help me. Told me the day that we were supposed to turn it in that they had cancer. And you'd be surprised to find that literally none of them died. So cancer is far more survivable, apparently, than they claim it is. I think that's what we're supposed to take from that. Either that or it was an excuse after wasting all of that time and making all of those empty promises not to keep their word. Now, that rape thing is probably the most common. That one right there, you're not allowed to say anything where you're a horrible misogynistic person. You're taking away from women's rights and you're being part of the rapey society, and how dare you? No. Males can be victims too, and when this happens to a male, who takes it seriously? Who's going to help them to turn it in right away? But then, of course, the stuff that Claire was wanting to talk about with the things that we have in common with our situations and some of our mutual predators and mutual places. Well, I was in the county that she's in. I was in the jail there. It was not pleasant. And yes, that's all over the Natalie Bollinger situation. I had to be able to show evidence in court, and I was being prevented from doing so. And then I was prevented from going to court repeatedly. I was prevented from going to both civil and criminal court because I was incarcerated multiple times on false charges. There's also multiple times where I literally had to break the law, was coerced under duress. That sucks. But then, of course, the attorneys don't want to do their jobs. Showing the truth actually takes time and effort. You actually have to listen to the victim, and they don't give a fuck. There's also the rights of a disabled victim, but they're not going to allow me those rights. Nope, they're going to call me mentally ill only when they can use it as a tool. So simultaneously, while they're saying that I'm not mentally ill and can do all these things for myself, they're also calling me mentally ill to prevent me from doing these things for myself. To deny me my access, to deny me my rights, to prevent me from turning in crimes, to talk over me and disrespect me and pass it off to the next person. The issue here is that these mandatory reporters didn't do their job at the very beginning, like they should have. There is an appropriate way to do things, and then there's the way that harms the victim. In Virginia, they should have taken the situation with Natalie more seriously. They should have actually investigated it. They shouldn't have given the false impression that I was arrested when I wasn't. I was taken to the hospital because I was fucking dehydrated. And I did tell them at the hospital about Natalie and the drugs and all that stuff. Now, did they bother to look at the evidence, or did they just want to believe what Natalie and her family said as if it must be the truth just because they said it? Now, here I'm having to believe Claire just because she said it. I want to believe Claire. I know how screwed up Colorado is. I know that in many cases, they don't even arrest the rapist. They'll arrest the rape victim for coming forward, like Teresa Macelia. And she's not the only example. Meanwhile, Claire has a lot of opinions, and her opinions are really, really super important. As far as her and the mandatory reporter stuff, she claims that she knows that stuff, but she didn't. She certainly didn't. But she knew exactly by instinct how to help her other people in her family to turn this in. She also claims that now that there was finally a mandatory reporter who listened to her, and now there's investigators for that and detectives and all sorts of this, that, and the other. And I've heard this before too, on 3 separate occasions. On occasions where she promised that she was going to help to turn it in. 4 separate occasions now, where she promised she was going to help turn it in, and then there was a major situation like that. Now, if Estes Park, Colorado is really that rapey, we should know. And something should be done about it. The picture I'm using for the front of this, it should show you how big Estes Park is. It's really not that big. Per capita, oh my God. Like, seems to me with the amount of times that another girl has come up to Claire while she was on the phone. And, sometimes I've heard somebody else on the other end talking to her. Most of the time, no. I don't hear anybody on the other end. I just hear Claire talking as if there's somebody on the other end. And then later on, she tells me a story about how she had to help an underage person turn in SA, which we need. We absolutely need that. Maybe she's telling the truth. Maybe she's pandering because she knows that that's something that I've fought for in a lot of different places. I've complained so much about having girls come tell me things that because I'm a male, it's risky for me to even listen to them talk to me because they are in close proximity to me. Someone might pretend that because a 15, 16 or 17-year-old girl is telling me that they were raped, there are passersby who might assume or decide that they just want to assume because they had a bad day that it's some pervert trying to, what's the word they use? Groom an underage girl. Now, I got a question for you, for all of you drug and alcohol counselors and all of you rape support counselors. You guys have had to hear these rape stories. All of you have. Am I incorrect about any of this? How about those girls that cut on themselves? Are they cutting on themselves because of what daddy did? Not usually. It's usually because mom's not listening. Therapists are mandatory reporters. When children are abused, everyone takes it seriously. They take it seriously right away. Well, for sexual abuse, not so much for physical abuse. When you're being abused and you're being treated like you're schizophrenic or delusional or like you just don't matter, and you have a mental breakdown over that, let me tell you what that's like, okay? Let me tell you how you doom your daughter, and you'll understand how you doom your son, because Your daughter is 5 times more likely to cut on herself than your son is, starting at the age of 15. Your son, however, that isn't a good thing because your son is less likely to be heard. He is 5 times more likely to end his own existence. So let's get to the real nitty gritty. Why did your daughter do that? Because you can't do anything about your son. Let's go through the process of how not listening results in a victim not being heard for the rest of their life. Step 1, daddy's a pervert and can't keep his hands to himself. Step 2, mom is not listening. She doesn't care, or she's not there, or she's too busy with everybody else's stuff or her own stuff, or she really wanted to watch this show. I've heard that one before. And that girl doesn't know who to turn it into, does she? She doesn't know who to turn to. These are her 2 trusted adults. One of them who's too busy to listen, and one of them that's got plenty of inappropriate time on his hands. So then she usually starts off scraping herself with usually doesn't even break the skin the first time. But it's a cry for help because she needs to get heard. Now, instead of hearing her, they have a mental health person come over and stamp her with suicidal ideations and have her taken to the hospital and given medications and tagged as mentally ill. And literally, for the rest of her life, anybody can harm her at will and get away with it. She doesn't have parents that are supportive, obviously. She has, what do we call those? We can't call them functional parents. Those aren't good parents. Not even the Richie Rich ones. What you've done is you've allowed one pervert to turn into multiple people victimizing the victim because she had to do something desperate. And for the rest of her life, people will be able to victimize her. And her mannerisms will show that. They will reflect that. She will become one of 2 extremes. Either super timid and quiet, hoping nobody will notice, or super, super loud and boisterous, hoping they'll go away. The reason for that is because she's not going to be able to go to the police. She can't go to the police the same as the rest of you women, especially if she's on the streets. She can't go to the police. I want you to get that through your head. She cannot go to the police. Now, Claire, when she was out here on the streets, the police treated her horribly. Now, from what she's saying, the police in Estes Park and in Boulder are helping her, and then she complains that they haven't done anything, that they've made a bunch of mistakes. And then she says they're gonna again. This is, I want to say it's probably the 4th time she's told me that they got the warrant for the guy and they're gonna go pick him up. So we eat up a lot of my time with that, where she says that she's gonna help me. Now you guys got to see when I was having a major issue, does she actually help to turn it in right away like somebody should? No, but she did try. This last week, she did try. She didn't look at the evidence. That became pretty evident through different portions of it. I'm sure she saw some of it. Some of it I've sent her before, and I'm certain she's looked at least a little bit of it. but she's not real well informed. A lot of the stuff that I explained to her more than once, where she always interrupted me at the same part to tell me a story. And here's the problem with those stories. Number one, she's interrupted me at that exact same part at least a dozen times or more to tell me the exact same story. Now, I'm trying to get you familiarized with what's in the evidence that I sent you. What the fuck does some twack job off in, New Orleans or Washington, what does that have to do with my situation? What does that have to do with you helping me turn in abuse? What does that have to do with you hearing my story? At that point, I have to tell the generalization, but I don't get down to any of the details. And that's because there is so much of it. And you need to recognize how much of it is and tell these people. That's the thing. Once they have decided that you're mentally ill, it is no longer your fault if these agencies don't do what they're supposed to. Once you are called mentally ill, you have no rights. None. No rights in court. None whatsoever. They pretend that you have rights in court, but really, who's going to complain? Your parents obviously aren't going to complain after the shit they did to you. If you are railroaded in court because you were victimized by your parents into mental illness and homelessness, and then you want to say you can't blame your parents, you chose this. No, you had a choice between staying with the dad who was doing that shit to you and the mom who was beating on you in most of these cases, all right? In most of these cases, the moms are the issue, all right? I don't know how many people that I was locked up with that were like, dude, my mom just wouldn't stop fucking beating on me. So I called her into CPS and they brought me here. I'm like, so she slapped you open-handed, whatever. No, dude, like, here's some bruises. Here's some bruises. Here's some bruises over here, too. And she told him I fell off my skateboard or I fucked myself up skateboarding. I don't even own a skateboard. Okay. Both men and women. Or sorry, both boys and girls in those situations. Being beaten by their mothers. And yeah, if your mom's beating on you, are you going to feel comfortable going to her about your dad raping you? Probably not. You have to hope you can go to the school nurse and not have to be afraid to do so. I mean, you also got to understand if these people go to jail, you're uprooting yourself and any family members. You're separating yourself from your familiarity. And you get to see in most of these cases, these women go back to what's familiar to them. A lot of the women that I helped out of these situations thought that they had to, what do you call it? Thank me with sex. I guess just say it as bluntly as I can, because I shouldn't have to try to sugarcoat this shit for any of you, and I find myself having to do that so that people aren't offended that I told the truth in the right words. It's stupid. So let's get to Estes Park. Well, I don't know much about Estes Park. I don't know if Estes Park police are going to treat those situations the same way that Boulder does. But it seems to me that it's something that is running rampant. Now, she says a lot of good things about the Estes Park police, or how they've treated her anyway, but then she also complains about how they're not doing stuff, or too slow, or various other things. She says that she's going to get me in contact with, this is another thing she keeps claiming. She has some friends that do this YouTube true crime stuff, and she's gonna, but I still haven't heard back anything in all these years. I hear that she's gonna, then she just doesn't. So, you see, while I'm supposed to go to a friend or family, first of all, if I do go to a friend or family member, there's a possibility I might get yelled at or screamed at. There's a possibility that I'm going to get treated like I'm a bad person for even asking for help. And, be told about all the horrible stuff they've had to go through in their week. But they don't want help turning it in. It's also not something they're helping me to turn in. If you're going to tell me that you didn't keep your word, that you basically screwed me over because something like that happened, you need to at least come forward with me to these investigators to tell them, yes, I had to deal with some situations that they're already being dealt with by other police officers. But while I was going to help Sean, I spent several days literally ignoring him, not letting him know that I was alive. And under the circumstances and conditions, it's, you know, pretty reasonable for him to actually worry. Just like it was reasonable for me to worry in the Natalie Bollinger situation. When I was told she disappeared, I knew exactly what to be afraid of. I was just wrong about who. I'd exposed what Tim Beeson was doing a long time earlier. It wasn't just Tim Beeson, though. Like I said, the three situations that I exposed were Ted Bollinger and Ken and Leah, Ken and Kenneth and Leatha. That would be Ken Wilson and Leatha Plunkett. And then, of course, the situation with Jamie and James. Now, I didn't want any of those things to be my business, but they did become my business when those people asked for help and then threw me under the bus and let their predators do whatever they wanted. If you're going to ask me for help getting out of a guy's house because he's beating on you, and then him and his friends end up tag teaming on me, yeah, I've got an issue with that. When they were doing that, it was a pretty good indicator that she was back with him. So there's a lot of things that you are expected to understand, and you're not supposed to tell anybody. You're not supposed to tell the police this stuff because it's private. There's minors involved, or there's rape involved, or there's this, that, and the other. No, 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 no. That does not validate any of it. If you're going to tell me about child abuse, I'm going to turn it in. If you're going to tell me that a little girl was raped, I'm going to turn it in. If you're telling me that that's what you did, was that you turned it in, and that's why you were taking the time to do that, and that's why you didn't keep your word, and that's why the situation, obviously, with you not being able to look at any evidence or be prepared for this, or the reason that you're constantly in a state of panic and having to tell your same story over the top of me over and over again like it's a pissing contest. And it's always the same part, too. And it's not just one interruption, it's a combination of, and I went through and I was counting them, there's 11 different main stories that she tells. And they're, they don't really deviate a lot necessarily. Sometimes when they deviate, it's based on new information. That means that the previous information wasn't a lie, it was wrong information. It may have been a lie from somebody else, which happens a lot, especially when mandatory reporters don't want to do their jobs. They pretend that the past history doesn't matter, that they don't need to actually look at it, that it's not their job to investigate, that you can't make a report for somebody else, same as the police will say if they don't want to do their job. But the reality is, if there's a disabled adult being abused, they need to take it seriously. They need to take the abuse seriously instead of going out of their way to try to discredit the victim. So, yeah, I paused to make this video because the situation with Claire, it's always been like that. And sometimes she does listen for a bit, but then she doesn't retain what I said. And part of that is because it's such a complicated situation. Years ago, one of the conversations I had with Darren O'Connor, it talks about by the way, he's in Colorado. I was trying to turn in some of the sexual assaults that I had to endure as a kid. And Darren O'Connor were talking about that and also getting some cameras and stuff to actually record the abuse and try to prevent this, well, what you would call it is ICE tactics, but this is standard procedure for the police against the homeless. You're not a human being. Nobody cares about your rights. The fact that you exist is a good enough excuse to check your ID. And if you won't provide it, they'll take you to jail. Another thing that the Boulder police are infamous for is for stealing your ID. They take your ID and don't give it back. So you have to come up with the money to go get another ID, whether it's a driver's license or otherwise. So that gets pretty expensive and it takes up a lot of time. And if you are trying to get a job, you can't get that job now. You don't have a fucking ID. And you guys think that just like you have a filing cabinet in your house full of all of your important paperwork, you think that homeless people are able to carry around a fucking filing cabinet full of paperwork? No. We live out in the rain. We live out in the snow. We live out in the sun. We live out in the elements. All of those elements will definitely destroy your equipment, destroy paper, destroy pens. I've had pens with the ink that got so frozen that it pushed out the backside of the pen. Cool beans. So, what I'm saying is that I want to believe Claire. But also, it's understandable, first of all, that the predator is probably not going to release a tape of him doing that stuff to people. They probably do everything that they can to make sure that they're not recorded, just like the police do. That's one of the things about making sure that you're in jail first. If you're in jail when they abuse the fuck out of you, well, you can't fucking record it. And you're homeless. Good luck getting a lawyer. Also, good luck getting the media to give a shit. Once in a while, they'll generalize about how finally there's some legislation about making it a hate crime to do these things to the homeless, and then it flops, and then we don't hear anything about it for years. So here's the thing. A lot of these people, their excuse is that they have kids, and that is a valid excuse. Also, all of these excuses that may or may not be valid, they might be outright lies. I still have to go along with it as if it is the truth. There was one girl who wanted to yell at me because I called her out on lying to me, and I knew that she lied to me about it because I know multiple people involved. But she wanted to claim that she couldn't keep her word to help turn it in because of a sexual assault that had happened. There was no sexual assault that happened. There wasn't one. It literally didn't happen. Like the other people that she was involved with that were supposedly going to help me, they're like, oh, so she's really prone to stories, and she also doesn't live where she says that she does, and it's also not her profile picture. Like, that's useful. Fuck. Thank you for telling me that. Maybe you should have told me that when you first found out instead of just now. But at the same time, I'm still going to take it seriously. But then, when it turned out that there was more to the story and that these people lived with her, and, this is all stuff that people don't want their personal business out there. But this is a bunch of crap that I didn't need. What I needed is one friend or family member who cared to look at the fucking evidence and help me to turn it in with me and record it for our safety. That's not that difficult. How many times have all of these people who have told me they don't know what to do, or, they feel rude about recording it, how many of them have actually given me the advice to record this stuff? That was attorney's advice to me before Natalie was killed. Record everything. What was I telling my friends and family that I needed help with? I needed to be able to record this stuff. I needed to be able to take screenshots. Sorry, it keeps flashing over here. That's one of the things about derailing the train, like I was saying. Motion. Being in a calm environment where there's not a lot of motion, not a lot of obviously extraneous sounds. This is a plastic tent. It's noisy. I'm glad to have it. It's keeping the weather off of me and I'm not freezing, which a lot of other people are right now. Right now, I am about the most spoiled hobo that there could be as far as accommodations go of actually still being a hobo, not being in an upgrade like an RV. But the thing is that I don't have the support network that I had before I hurt my back. And many of the people who have claimed to help me, all right, all of the people who have claimed that they're going to help me have always made repeated excuses. Everybody's got cancer. Everybody's got to go to court now. Everybody's now being called mentally ill, so their words aren't valid. I'm like, you were a witness who sent me evidence. Like, if you're going to send me, 30 screenshots showing what these people are doing, that these people that are claiming that they're going to help me, like, for example, Kara Johnson Miles, the screenshots of what she was saying and doing to Shannon Alvarado when she got busted. That's right. Kara Johnson Miles got busted by Shannon Alvarado and then wanted to throw a tantrum, play victim, and block me. And then Shannon wouldn't help me turn it in. She made literally zero effort in all of these years to help me turn it in, which sucks because Shannon Alvarado, just like Kara Johnson Miles, just like Danica Garner and Rochelle Shelley Campbell, the reason that I was trying to trust these people, mind you, I don't trust any of them, but the reason I was trying to trust them is because they were claiming that they were going to try to turn in the evidence. They were going to try to help me to turn in the abuse. Every one of them. I'm not just talking about the abuse against me, I'm also talking about the abuse against Natalie, and they all knew it was happening. The thing is that when I go to these services that are female dominant, they treat male victims completely different than they treat female victims. Unless that female victim happens to be homeless. Now, with what Claire's been saying for the last week, apparently she's basically been talking to the police every single day, sometimes most of the day, and also dealing with at least 4 rape victims just from the last week. Now, if that's all going on, in addition to the phone calls that she She did make with me, finally. And that almost got us somewhere until she tuckered out. I can't help that. I can't stop that. I can't prevent that. It is what it is. However, if this is a situation where what she is saying is true, then they're going to need a lot more help in Estes Park. I mean, I've seen how big Estes Park is. It's fucking tiny. It's like a Tillamook, maybe. Um, Matter of fact, Tillamook actually looks bigger to me, but what do I know? It's been a few years since I was there. But we're talking about a massive number of sexual assaults in Estes Park, Colorado in a short period of time. Now, if I believe Claire, then I got to speak up about Estes Park. Because she's a woman, I am expected to believe her, and I'm doing as I am expected. The thing is, I don't have any evidence of most of the stories that she's telling me. I don't have any evidence to say, prove, or suggest that it's true or not. The stuff that I have seen evidence of, there's a difference between seeing something happen and seeing something happen to her. If she was physically assaulted by somebody and I saw it with my own two eyes, I'd say, yeah, that happened. If she was physically assaulted by somebody and she caught it on camera, I'd say, yeah, that happened. If she says that she was physically assaulted and she has evidence but literally never produces it, what evidence do you have? You have a piece of paper from 6 months after the fact saying that you accused him of physically assaulting you 6 months earlier. That's evidence that you tried to turn it in, yes, but it's not evidence that you were assaulted. If there's video evidence that it's true, that video evidence needs to be taken seriously. Sorry. I got a stuttering problem and I was having a little bit of issues. So this is almost an hour long. I'm out of food. I got water left, so at least that'll last me a few days. I didn't have any help maintaining the things that I need to be able to maintain because I can't function. I can't function because this is the help that I get. For a lot of people, for example, with Brandon Ratner, the reason that he was basically kicking me in the teeth and not coming forward about the stuff that he knew was because he was always busy chasing tail. Every new girl is the one, and he spends a lot of time and a lot of money helping women out, same as I did. If you got the ability to help them, then help them. But the difference between Brandon Ratner and I is that I helped them because they needed help. Brandon Ratner helped them because, well, it was a situation where he was trying to flirt with a girl and she asked him to do a favor. That's not the same thing. That is definitely not the same thing. There's a big difference between Jamie Curtis saying, Sean, I need a hero. My boyfriend beats on me. I need help moving out so that we're safe. That's understandable. When you're ditching a friend in an emergency because you're helping out somebody else in an emergency like that, that is understandable. When you're letting your friend be repeatedly physically harmed because a girl that you were flirting with and really, really, really want to date with, she wants you to pack up her and her mom because she's moving to Texas. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your heart, but that's the sixth woman in 1 year. And oh my God, dude. Like, I'm a hopeless romantic too. I love love stories. I really do. But I don't believe in love. I just like the stories. I either love you or I don't. And that sucks because I love people that have done some horrible things to me and I still love them. But they don't love me. That's pretty easy to throw away when it was a matter of convenience. After they'd wasted hundreds or even thousands of hours of my time in some cases, making empty promises and not keeping their word, promising they're going to, or they're going to next time. Oh, they'll write it out. They'll turn it in with me. I got plenty of stuff that was written, but nobody turned it in with me. And how am I treated if I go in there with those? Well, how do we know you didn't write those? That's why you take a friend or family member in there with you, one who knows what's going on, not one who's constantly comparing stories. All right? If you're going to help me and your story is going to help me, you've already explained how your story is going to help me 100 times. But you've literally interrupted me 100 times to do that. And then you say you're not going to do that anymore. Or you want to repeatedly interrupt and say, I know I said I wouldn't make it about me, but I'm going to make it about me real quick. And then you make it about you real quick for 10 or 15 minutes, unless I stop you and try to bring you back to what it is that we're supposed to be talking about, the abuse. Why is it that they all become, and they all, I mean all of these people, both male and female, start becoming scatterbrained as soon as it comes to remembering anything that's in the evidence? Well, mostly it's because they're not focused on the evidence. They're not focused on my story. For guys, we're used to women using us as their therapy. We guys tend to call it nagging because we're listening to her bitch about all of her problems and we're not getting paid for it. But then, of course, there's the part at the end of the story where we're expected to do something. We're expected to offer help. Now, when we offer help, we're expected to follow through, and we're expected to follow through immediately. We've also got here with, 5 or 6 women screaming at me, take it down now. Jamie Curtis, Veronica Bruce. Yeah. I post up the truth and they want it down. But why would I hide the truth? Why would I hide the fact that I did go to people for help before Natalie was killed? Why would I hide the fact that the people who said that they were going to help me always had something else on their agenda? They always needed help. They always needed help. Sean, I need help with this and I need help with that. Sean, you need to fix this now. You need to fix this right away. Right away. Right away. And it's always right away with them when they don't like the fact that you told the truth. But then, of course, when it comes to them telling the truth, oh, they just don't have time. They don't have time. They don't have time. They got cancer again. Their kid got cancer again. They got beat up by their husband and ended up in jail for getting beaten up by their husband. or they've got to go to all these drug and alcohol classes and don't have time, or somebody just died and then somebody else died and then somebody else died. And it seems to me that there's a rotation of excuses that are supposed to be acceptable excuses. And because they became acceptable excuses, those are the excuses that people, according to what pattern works best with you, are going to choose. If they know that saying that they have an investigator there who's actually going to listen to them, or if they say they're trying to turn in sexual assault, is going to get you to drop whatever it is, no matter how important it is, including if you're being beaten to death, then when they promise to help you and it comes time to keep their promise, that's what they're going to do. If the thing that is the biggest thing for you is, you got to make money. Everybody's got to make a living. Then your patterns are going to show that, right? So when people say, hey, man, I got to make some money. I got to pay my rent. I got to pay my bills. I got to pay my truck. When they know that that pattern is going to allow them to basically cheapskate out on a promise that they made, then they're going to start using that every time if they can. If they know that you don't care about money, of course, whenever they do these things, what they're trying to do is basically make you feel bad for asking for help, or make you feel bad because they fucking lied to you. They didn't keep their word. They were selfish. They didn't find out what was going on because they were talking about themselves. And then their excuse is every time, if they know that all they have to do is say that a child was abused or somebody was raped, and you will literally drop everything, and all of a sudden you're not mad at them anymore for all the fucked up shit that they did. Well, I'm still mad. All right? If you're going to lead me to believe that you're in an unsafe situation, or give me information that is going to obviously lead anybody who's reasonable, other than you who believe yourself to be reasonable, anybody else hearing these details from you is going to immediately be afraid for your safety. And also, when you don't make it to appointments to help that person turn it in, like at this point, Claire Jordan has helped to turn in, I'm going to say, 12 or 13 sexual assaults in Estes Park, Colorado altogether that I've got recorded her talking about. Because in each of these cases, it's something that is fresh and new. It's a brand new crime that just happened, and she's got to tell me about it. Not one of those competition stories where she's telling the same story of one person that it happened to, 8 years ago or 6 years ago, or maybe even, 6 months ago. So if there's that many, and she's spending that much time at the police station, and she's helping out that many children in Estes Park, Colorado, I mean, shit, they should give her a fucking Nobel Peace Prize. Seriously. That's a lot to put on somebody's plate, especially somebody who's autistic. But also, I would expect her to be better understanding of the mandatory reporter stuff if she'd actually taken the training, and if she was actually helping out this many victims. It makes sense why she's not helping me if she's got that many victims that she's helping out, if she's got that many people that she's trying to help turn in abuse for. That's a lot of people, though, isn't it? And she's apparently, she says they call her mama there and stuff like that, and they come up and tell her about all of the horrible things people are doing to them. And so basically I get to sit through parts of the things that I don't get to post up about, a lot of therapy stuff and things of that nature, that even though she says nothing redacted, obviously it's stuff that she doesn't want posted up. And in a lot of the cases where people didn't want stuff posted up, It makes sense if you listen to their reasoning. It's a valid reason. But then when it turns out that it wasn't true, and there's evidence that it wasn't true, those people immediately start playing victim. How dare you? How dare you? You this and you that. And the thing is, no, no, you need to be a responsible adult, same as anybody else. If you're in a desperate situation, which you claim to be, I can understand. It's kind of like Jamie with the situation with James. If she hadn't told me that she was afraid of being in the same town as James, and I hadn't seen the bruises that I basically have to pretend didn't exist to make Jamie happy, where's this ever going to be a smart thing to do? If no matter what, it's going to feel like when a woman says that they're going to help you, what it's going to feel like to you is that you're the one giving all the help. You're the one giving all of the actual support. And the comparison for you married guys out there is when you come into the door after a hard day's work and she asks you how your day was, and you know it's a trick question. You know that what you're going to have to say is, my day was fine. That way she can do what it is that you already knew she was going to do when you came through the door, which is tell you about what everybody else in town is doing, who's fucking who, whose kid's on the honor roll, or whose kid's in detention, or who's being naughty, or whose fence got knocked down. Just a bunch of ungodly crap. Well, that's kind of a similar issue where we're being told in many of these cases, a lot of different women offered to help me, and then they started telling me their stories. And then it turned out that they never wanted to help me. They thought that because of how popular it was, that if I spoke up about their situation, that they would get help. So I started trying to do that. I was like, you know what? If as long as you're honest with me about it from the start, don't waste all of my time on this. Like the Shannon Alvarado thing. She had her friend Marnie that she wanted help finding. When she wanted help finding her friend Marnie, every time she asked, within 10 minutes, I posted something. When I asked for her help turning this stuff into the police that she had seen and taken a part of, she literally never once made the effort. That's not okay. The stuff with Natalie Bollinger and Kara Johnson Miles, and all of this time, not once did she ever lift a finger to turn it in. And she admitted that. With Shannon Alvarado, it's also one of those things where everything that I say has some story that she wants to tell, some article that she read, something that she watched on TV, and what I'm saying is these people know what my patterns are. They know what it is that trips my trigger. They know if they say that a child was harmed or there was rape involved, that no matter how horrible a thing that they have actually done, or how horrible a situation it has forced me into, that I have to let it go or I'm the bad guy. Or if she wastes 1,000 hours of my time with empty promises and conversations where she claims she's going to listen and look at evidence to help me turn it in, and when it's time to do so, all of a sudden she's got cancer. Well, you're a bad guy if you expect a cancer survivor to come forward. How dare you expect that person at the end of their life, the end of their ropes, they're at the end of their mortal coil. How dare you expect them to tell the truth finally after letting you be physically assaulted for years because they didn't? And then the worst part, they weren't at the end of their lives, were they? How many of these people even got sick? But the other thing that is always a red flag for me, if you don't want to turn in your predator, you plan on going back. That predator is still a resource. You are attached to that predator through necessity. Like, sure, you might hate your dad because he raped you growing up, but he still gives you money sometimes when you need it. Or sure, your mom beat the hell out of you and then lied to the police about you repeatedly. But at the same time, it's lonely being a dude. At least she'll talk to you once in a while, maybe. At least she remembers to send you a birthday card. My mom didn't, but I didn't expect her to. My mom was definitely not Mother of the Year. So here's the thing. Basically, from the mass quantities of stuff that Claire has basically told me, she pretty much spends her entire day either at the police station or the police are at her house all day. I mean, that's an awful lot of sexual assaults to happen in 1 week, or 2 weeks even. She knows that if it's a minor, I'm going to automatically let her win. That's not an argument I can win. I'm a horrible person if I say anything about a woman not keeping her word, and they have their shit down on lockdown. That SA crap is used across the board for anything. Anything that you possibly do wrong. If she wants to win a custody battle, USA'd somebody. We got to watch out for that stuff. Also, statistically, women are usually the aggressor. Women are more likely to be the aggressor than men by a lot. Also, lesbian relationships are the most violent relationships statistically. I just pressed play. Anyway, I should have been recording more of that video, but I really had to post this. It doesn't matter if you agree with me or don't agree with me. The thing is that I've been trying to turn in crimes for years, and I've had to deal with primarily women who primarily will make any excuse not to do anything. When they say that they will, you're still waiting on a phone call 6 months later. You're not allowed to bug them about it, or you're a stalker. You're harassing them. But when they call you over and over and over again, oh my God, this guy beat on me, he beat on me, he beat on me. Stop harassing me. You said you were going to help me turn it in. No, I didn't, and I'm not going to. Stop harassing me. See how that feels? It doesn't feel very good. Or people who say that they're going to do something, right? And you say, these people gave their word. Some of them actually literally use the word promise. And you say, you promised to help me to turn this in. This is why I wasted my time with you, because you promised to help me to turn it in. I didn't say I promised. And obviously, the first dozen or so times I explain that to them, I don't say wasted my time. I say, hey, I spent all of this time because you promised that you were going to help me to turn these crimes in together so that we are less likely to be talked over, disrespected, and also so that I can record it, so that we have proof that it happened, so that it's not their word versus ours. You also get to see how the mentally ill tag takes away all of that. You've gotten to see that there are multiple videos of actual assaults against me. I haven't seen any video of any assault against Claire. I haven't seen any video of any assault against Jamie. I do have a bunch of screenshots, a rather large collection of screenshots from a whole bunch of Jamie's friends getting a hold of me on Facebook and coming at me pretty heavy over things that they literally were protecting people that are the bad guys that did wrong things. While Natalie never accused me of raping or molesting her, she did make those accusations about her dad. While she never accused me of hitting her, she did make those accusations about her dad. While I never threatened to kill her stepmother's ex-stepmothers, my apologies, in her own words and their own words. Those are facts. Those things actually happened. So the thing here is, like I've been saying from the start, disabled male victims don't mean shit to anybody. The people who claim that they're going to help us, they don't eventually get around to it. By the time they eventually get around to pretending that they're going to, you're already being told, oh, well, we can't do anything about it. They already destroyed all of the body camera evidence because, really, you didn't take it seriously. You wanted to talk about yourself and treat Sean like he's your goddamn therapist. You promised to help him, and then you waste his time. You promise to listen to him, and then you interrupt him at the same exact places to say the same exact story that's, in reality, completely unrelated. I'm sending this evidence because, like I said, if you tell me that you were sexually assaulted, I basically have to take that on trust. I basically am only believing you because you have a vagina. There's no other reason. I'm having to believe you because morally, societally, I am expected to. I am expected to drop everything because of those things. You're not going to drop everything for me, and if you do, you're going to make a big show of it by saying over and over and over again. Like, let's say, for example, with Detective Raymond, who did a lot of other things. She did not show up to investigate. She showed up to talk over me and make excuses. Now, that certainly isn't okay. Let me pause for a second. So, even though Detective Raymond recorded it, it was over a year ago, and getting the body cameras is going to be impossible without assistance. That's if they haven't already destroyed it, which they probably have. However, there's a chance that they didn't because she was supposed to be there to investigate. What she did instead was repeatedly tell me over and over and over again that she's on overtime. Tried to basically push on me that she was insinuating that she felt like she was wasting tax dollars. She was going out of her way to make me feel as small as possible, like I was doing some horrible thing for trying to turn in the crimes, and that, well, showing very blatantly that she'd already decided she wasn't going to investigate. She wasn't going to hear my side. She already had pre-prepared excuses to say. And of course, that time management thing. Oh, all the time that I spent talking to you. No, you were talking to me, exactly. You weren't listening, and you weren't helping turn it in. You weren't looking at the evidence. You were claiming that you were doing things that you didn't. Now, how many people claim that they were looking at the evidence and it turned out that they never did? Well, there's Mandy Hughes in Colorado. Yeah, my crap started in Colorado. It actually, well, yeah, when I hurt my back in 2015, right before my birthday, the day before, matter of fact. The last time I saw Natalie Bollinger was on my birthday in 2016. We'd only been friends for about 6 months, if that. But she was the only friend that I had at that point in time that wasn't just bullshit. And you guys don't want to reflect on that. You're too busy trying to pretend that because of my age, I'm a pervert. No. Maybe you should go to Estes Park looking for perverts. Now, either the situations that Claire is telling me about are true, or this is a really delusional and fucked up situation. And I'm getting played like a motherfucker. She also knows that if she disappears, that I'm going to freak out. If she disappears after telling me that there's a very dangerous situation, and then she doesn't respond for several days, she knows I'm gonna fucking freak out. This is not the first time she's done it. Jamie has done that with me. Like, for me to find out that James was literally dating Jamie at the same time, like when Natalie was killed, yeah, apparently, according to James, he and Jamie were dating at that point in time. This is at the same point in time where Jamie is telling me that she's afraid for her son's life and her life. She's afraid that James will find them and hurt them. This is at the same time where she was calling a hold of me after the whole situation with Natalie. She was literally screaming at me on the telephone, screaming at me, telling me that James came and found her, stalked her to her house because of me. That situation, what was it, 2 years after that when I was at Jamie's? Would have been October 19th of 2019. I think I was there for maybe 2 weeks to a month even. And you got to hear again, she got caught again being dishonest and being angry and screaming. Kind of like Veronica Bruce when she got busted. You could hear her. She didn't even have the gall to call me herself. She had her husband do it while she screamed in the background hysterically like a lunatic. Take it down! I didn't do anything wrong! Well, you're a mandatory reporter, and instead of listening, what you decided is that when your friend said that he needed help from a mandatory reporter, that you were going to do is wait until you were drinking and painting a room in your house and huffing paint fumes, apparently, because she claims that, well, much later, that she didn't hardly drink anything. Christopher Tapp did the same thing. Claimed that he was going to help me after Natalie was killed. Then he fucking assaulted me repeatedly because he was drunk on Jameson. He was pissed off because he wanted to repeatedly interrupt while I was talking to Kimberly Jeffson's cousin. Her name was, give me a second, Kelly Wilmoth. Chris kept slapping me on the arm, wanting my attention. He wanted to say something to her. Like, fuck, dude. This is important shit. This is right after Natalie was killed. You know, right after the situation where I was assaulted by Waylon Lolatai. I was in a really screwed up situation. And here's this guy who's claiming to be my friend that's physically assaulting me because he's drunk. Later on, he can't even admit it. Meanwhile, I keep getting all this, oh, well, I don't have time. I'm only going to set aside 30 minutes. Like, shit. See, the problem with all of that is that, like I said, when you get to that one particular part in the story, you need to be able to get over that hurdle, and it's not your hurdle. That roadblock is not there because you put it there. That roadblock is there because Claire put it there again. Like, okay, we've got a clear stretch. You're going to let me tell you what's going on. And then, you know, it's 100 yards, right? We'll make it a short race. It's 100 yards. And then Right when I get to the 10-yard line, you slide a hurdle into the 10-yard line. Bam! Down I go. So here's an hour and a half of, do I believe Claire? I mean, the stuff I have to say is backed up by a lot of evidence. I've seen some of these places do bad stuff, but I haven't seen them do bad stuff to her, and I haven't seen any video or audio evidence of these places to do bad stuff to her. Meanwhile, I've sent her a shit ton of evidence that they did that shit to me. She claimed she was going to actually help me, but she's missing appointments, not paying attention to what's going on. If she does actually call, it's way too late for the appointment, and she knows it. It's kind of like Kayla Trujillo when she finally was going to go in with me to talk to the state troopers, and it turned out that it was a firehouse was where the state troopers for our county was. So we had to go to this firehouse to talk to them. Well, unfortunately, it was fucking really late in the day by the time we got out there, because you spent all day long playing a word puzzle game on her telephone. She couldn't be distracted from it. She wasn't looking up information. She wasn't researching. She wasn't reaching out for help or trying to find resources. She was playing a word puzzle game. And we finally got out there at like, shit, 3, 4, 5 in the evening, I want to say. They said that there was nobody there, that I'd have to schedule an appointment. You can't just go in and turn it in. You have to schedule an appointment. And I was like, all right, well, I guess we'll have to schedule an appointment. I was glad she went out there with me, but it was pretty obvious that late in the day that they weren't going to be taking it seriously. We hoped. But what we got is the intercom on the outside of the building, with them basically giving us the Monty Python treatment, telling us to go away and come back another day. But she never, ever made any effort whatsoever to set up a day with me to go in to do that. She literally made no effort to let me know when she would be available, what days she had on and what days she had off. She said that she would do those things, that she would go in with me to turn it in. But then I have to schedule it when she's available. And what's going to happen if I schedule it on a day when she's working? I'm sorry, Sean, I can't do it that day. I have to work. I'm sorry, Sean, I can't do it that day. I have to work. And they say, oh, well, let's do it according to your schedule. I don't fucking have a schedule. My schedule is me trying to get one person who gives a shit enough to actually look at the evidence and take it seriously. With Claire, like, she'll generalize that she saw some of this stuff. She can't remember any of these people's names. She says she remembers all the names. And then I asked her the names of some of these people, and she was like, Christopher Wolnez. No, that's not it. That's not it. You say that you watched the videos. I don't even want to ask her what's in the videos that she claims she watched, because that might turn into an argument where it's, oh, well, it was so long ago I don't remember, or why are you trying to test me, things like that. But the fact is that she is still a witness. She's also the closest thing that I have to a friend or family member right now trying to turn it in. No matter how many excuses she makes, she still made calls with me last week now, didn't she? Now we've gone through a bunch of lists of things that, well, I'm having to deal with from women who claim that they're going to help me. How many of them have taken it seriously? How many of them have tried to make it a pity party or a pissing contest for them? How many of them always misrepresent the situation when they claim that they're going to help you to turn it in? Like, how many of these women have done this consistently 100% of the time? Quite a few. How many of them are at a 90% or above? I'd say all of them. Like, shit, getting help as a male from a society that caters to women, that doesn't work. It caters to women. One of the things that Claire's called me up about, super excited and like really excited in their voice and whatnot, is that they're helping her, and these investigators are finally listening, and they're finally gonna this and they're finally gonna that for her. But and how it's different in Tillamook because the they hate women thing. No, it's not different in Tillamook because the they hate women thing. How many times have I told you about that? About homeless women saying this stuff only happens to them because they're women. Homeless black people saying that stuff's only happening to them because they're black. Homeless Jews saying it's only happening to them because they're Jews. Homeless Christians saying it's only happening to them because they're Christians. And meanwhile, they're all fucking homeless. That's why it's happening to them. And now that Claire's not homeless anymore, she's definitely getting the benefits of being a white girl in a house. And she's also admitted that. You know, it's a far greater chance, given statistics, that the reason that if they are listening to her now is because she's a white woman in a house, and before she was homeless. That does make perfect sense. But also it has to be true. And while I have evidence of the crimes committed against me, what she has is empty claims. Literally, for her to be able to prove that any of these things that she's claiming about any of these agencies are true, she will have to use my evidence to show it. Yeah, when she was here, I was the one who had to convince her and explain to her the importance of recording for our safety. It's not just your safety, it's the safety of those around you. You're allowed to record in public. And when it comes to abuse against children, the disabled, or the elderly, no person may have the expectation of privacy. No person. So here's the thing. If what Claire is saying is really going on in Estes Park with all of that rape, something needs to be done about it. However, making false accusations is also very serious. Manipulating a disabled person that you promised to help and took advantage of more than once, that's pretty serious too. I don't know if anybody in Estes Park is going to watch this, or for certainly if they're going to watch it to the end, but I'm having a real problem believing people because they're showing me that there isn't much reason to believe them. I'm having to believe them blindly because of my own experiences. Well, no, me being raped in Fort Logan, sorry, not supposed to talk about this stuff, are we? Men are supposed to shut up. If we don't, we're not being men, are we? We're not being manly. Right? When she says that nobody offered to help her turn it in, nobody helped to turn it in, you can hear me offering over and over and over and over and over. At this point, the only thing that I can think of as a reason why she would keep on saying that and not want to turn it in is that it's not true. After all this time, I don't want to say that I don't believe it's true, now do I? Me being raped years ago as a kid in Colorado, in that county, does not mean that they raped Claire. That's just not transferable information. And if she asked me for help turning in rape, and every single time that she started trying to tell me about the evidence that she has that needs looked at and the way that she's being treated, instead of taking it seriously and addressing the fact that we're turning in her crimes, if instead every time I started talking about the abuse I endured at Fort Logan, or I yelled at her, or screamed at her because she's busy. Yeah, she yelled at me when I was literally in a situation where somebody was swinging a pipe at me. She yelled at me at the top of her lungs because she had a situation going on and she was stressed out. Now, there's autism traits, and yes, if I start talking about autism traits, she wants to finish my sentences. No, we're not the same person, Claire. See, this is the thing about autistic people. We know that we're all different. And most of us will try to learn how the other person is different. But Claire is wanting to do the whole connecting thing. I don't need you to make a connection with me. I need you to hear my story. I don't need this investigator lady at TFCC to make a connection with me. I need her to hear my story instead of making excuses, instead of copping out, instead of dipping out, instead of making it about her the whole time. Polly Olson wanted to make it about her and her friendship. The reason she couldn't tell the truth is because she was friends with some of the cops I was trying to turn in. And then she ended up getting busted anyway, didn't she? That's right, she did. Let's talk about Sarah Nelson Torciello. She was used as a rubber stamp for Scott DaCosta as well. And she got arrested for what? Sexual assault against an inmate, among other things. Michelle Decini was one of the biggest bullies in the place. And she got busted for sexual assault as well, and for smuggling goods. The idea that women can't commit crimes or won't commit crimes, or that they wouldn't manipulate you, is just ludicrous. I mean, it's obvious that Jamie manipulated a lot of people. A lot of the people that she manipulated into coming at me are people who had told me, as if I didn't already know, they had told me that James had smacked Jamie around. That's right, it made it back to chapel before I did. So if that made it back to chapel before I did, let's take a look at the people in Chapel, Nebraska, and in the surrounding area, because everybody shares information there. Who are the people that she knew, that she got in contact with over the situation with James? Well, there was me, so I could have given out that information. It's possible, but I didn't, because it was a surprise when I got to chapel. Todd Rust might have given out that information. His wife Michelle might have given out that information. Any of their children who were there for the situation might have given out that information. So there's also her mutual friends and other places that she called for help, like Clyde McNett, or her friend Trevor. And by the way, Clyde has always been super nice to me, and so has Trevor. I've seen him several times since these instances have happened, and both of them have been kind to me. But they were both involved in the getting Jamie out of that situation by helping her out with money and also as a co-signer. So Jamie had a lot of help in that situation, And there were also a lot of people who lived in the area surrounding Chapel, Nebraska, who also could have spread that rumor and also knew many of the same people that Jamie knew in Chapel from Jamie's parties. So going back to Chapel, Nebraska, after helping Jamie and the boy, and I get back to Chapel, Nebraska, and people are telling me that James beat up Jamie. Well, yeah, of course I was going to hear those rumors. I mean, well, she says that she, wants to keep her life private and she doesn't want everybody knowing her business. She sure as hell told a lot of people that James beat on her. She sure told a lot of people about that situation. Now, why is it that she took that situation away, so to speak? Because she was angry I told the truth. She was also angry that I was speaking up because there were consequences for me for her manipulating in that way. If he actually beats you, you turn him in. If you don't turn him in, I'm going to assume that you're going to go back to him like most women do. If you're not willing to turn him in, I'm going to assume that when you go back to him, that I'm going to be targeted like I nearly always am because you nearly always go back. The other thing is, if you're going to tell me that there's evidence of this stuff, you want me to believe you, and you're going to send me evidence so that I will believe you. You need to send that evidence instead of just blindly expecting me to believe every story that you tell me, especially and I'm not saying this doesn't happen. I mean, in Detroit, for a concurrent number of years, the average number of times that a woman was raped when homeless was 5 times a month. That's fucking significant. And sure, it's just one little suburb of that, but that's significant. That is very significant. Now, when you've got somebody who's learned that they can use this, just like if they know that the money thing and paying bills is the excuse that's going to work best. Well, you know that that's going to magically validate that you just don't have time to tell the truth, and that's why you're not telling the truth. No, 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 no. The victim is being treated like they're schizophrenic and delusional because you're not making the time to do the right thing as a decent person would do. And how many of you are going to hide behind Christianity after that? Oh, but I'm not Jesus. I don't know how many times I've heard that nastiness. So here's one of my longer videos. I hope you hate it. And I am absolutely going to make the title about the town that she's in. If she's telling the truth and it is that bad, all of them need to be heard. And it needs to be taken seriously. It also needs to be acknowledged that it's not my fault that there are so many rapists in Estes Park, that this one woman who is a victim of all this crap herself can't keep her word because there's that many rapes in Estes Park. Hopefully, after an hour and 45 minutes of me ranting and rambling about this, some part of it is sunk in. I'm not asking you to follow me blindly or believe me blindly. I'm not pretending like I'm going to look at your evidence and then you send it to me and I just don't look and then try to fake my way through it. It's not like if you send me 20 screenshots of evidence that I'm only going to read one or two, maybe. Or if you give me a list of videos that show you being assaulted that you need help turned in, I'm not just going to have to watch one of them. I'll watch all of them. Absolutely. And help you to turn it in over the phone if you're somewhere else, and in person if it's here. And that's all I've been asking of anybody else. Look at my evidence. Instead of talking about yourself, who has no evidence, who hasn't produced a single shred of evidence but expects me to blindly believe you, I don't blindly believe you. I'm trying to trust you. I'm trying to believe you. But you are giving me every indication that that's a really bad idea. I show these people my evidence so they can verify I'm telling the truth. I can't verify that some random person raped somebody in Logan or Larimer or Boulder County just because I was raped in all three of those counties. Well, sexually molested in one and raped in the other two. But that's not what's important here. What's important is that those things happening to me in those counties doesn't mean that it happened to Claire. And that's what she keeps trying to do with my case, is interject her story, interject her piece, interject what she wants to do. She doesn't want to turn it in. She's made it obvious that she doesn't want to turn it in. She for certainly 100% doesn't want my help turning it in, because every time that she has claimed that she wants to turn this in and I offer to help, she either blows me off or she gets a hold of me and claims that these people are magically helping her now, so she doesn't need my help anymore. And then later on, the same issue comes up, and all of a sudden she's forgotten that they were going to help her and didn't. And all of a sudden I'm having to hear this same stuff. Are these excuses, or is she telling the truth? If you're from Estes Park, Colorado, please get on my channel, get on this specific video here, and let me know if Estes Park, Colorado is really that rapey, because that is some scary shit. And if it's not, what the fuck? The fact is, Claire knows my patterns. She knows exactly how to manipulate me, same as Jamie. Jamie knows that she can't manipulate me using sex. The only thing that Jamie ever found that was effective is her son. Her son is literally the only manipulation tactic that Jamie has or ever ended up with. Some of the stuff she was able to do early on, I caught on to. I'm not an idiot. I pay attention to my surroundings, and I grew up in the system. All right, I didn't grow up in a fucking mansion with manservants and maidservants completely devoid of fucking reality. I grew up in the system with children who were beaten, children who were raped. Some of those children actually killed people. I grew up in foster homes and group homes with people of every color. I had good foster homes and I had bad foster homes. I did not have good parents. So, what's the dig down there in Colorado? Is Estes Park protecting sex offenders the same way that Tillamook, Oregon is? Because Tillamook, Oregon is for certainly doing it.